The scene opens in the motel room 104, and a man Lewis walks in and heads straight to the radio to turn it on. Christmas tree is playing and he seems to like that song. He walks back to the bed and sits down with his briefcase next to him, and he closes his eyes to concentrate on something, but a door knock interrupts his slumber. Alice then shuts off the radio and opens the door, and it's Jeong at the door. He invites her in, and she was expecting something more extravagant than a cheap motel room from the devil, and is a bit disappointed that she got this and not a mansion. Lewis had to clarify that it's policy to engage with a client at their personal level. For Jeong, that seemed a bit insulting. Lewis asks her to have a seat so they can go over the contract that she will be signing soon, and she had to look far and wide to find him, but he does this intentionally so the people who truly want to be here can come to make the deal. So the high bar for the entry is necessary. Neri Jeong is committed, and she listens to Black Sabbath's album, which is a band from the UK that she likes. The album changed her life, but Lewis has no idea who they are, and she tries to explain, thinking the devil would be into heavy metal, but Avis isn't a fan of contemporary music. She then realizes that most of the good musicians must be in hell too, and Lewis must know them, so she asks if he knows any of them, but suddenly he can't discuss other clients. She keeps going, so he had to stop her and make her focus on the deal at hand, and Jeong then sits down and tells him that everyone seems to be partying and having a great time, while she gets to just not have any of that. The other girls with the expensive cars, amazing apartments, and hot boyfriends were all making her jealous. They all have that, and she wants it to end. She couldn't understand why she can't have a lot of boyfriends, drive cool cars, and look amazing just like them, just so she can get back at everyone, one who overlooked her in her life. He knows what she's talking about, and he can definitely help her with that. And Jeong gets a bit confused because he's not exactly trying to convince her to sell her soul, but that it's not the way he does things, and that this has to be 100% her decision. So apparently this is how it works. Once she makes the decision and she's comfortable with it, Alice will have her sign the papers, and that's it. So he gives her a pen, and she immediately flips through the pages to find the signature line, but stops her because she definitely should read the contract before signing it. He urges her to at least take a look at the last election, which mentions that Lewis will gain ownership of her soul for eternity, and he asks her again if she's completely comfortable with that, and she seems to not care at all. She is not going to St. Bart's this time because she has a private jet waiting for her at the airport to take her there. Louis is there to collect on his deal. According to her agreement, his company now owns her soul, and he is just here to get what is rightfully his. She has another destination, which is hell for eternity. Despite the passage of time, Jeong remains unconvinced that this is a serious concern. She wants her lawyer to review it. Avis provided her with all the information prior to her signing it all those years ago, but she claims no one has reviewed the conditions, and it feels like signing away your soul would require some reading. She was trying to dismiss this, but they kept their side of the deal, and now it's time to keep hers. She's had 50 long years, and now it's time to pay up for all those pleasureful and amazing years that she spent on Earth. Jeong arrogantly says no, and this really pisses him off. And he has to go through this every time, as people have to argue with him instead of actually reading the contracts that they signed. She then asks what he means when he says hell, but to Lewis, that's the obvious part, the one everyone sees in the movies and paintings. And she asks if it's one of those ironic hells like Homer Simpson and the donuts, but there's really no irony here, and she's going to be stepping into a never-ending torment and endless hellfire and brimstone. And there's really no escaping that. Jeong is still not convinced that hell is an actual thing of the way it's depicted in art and media, so she starts mocking hell in heaven. Lewis hasn't been to heaven, but it's pretty much the idea that it's a better place than hell. When she still doesn't buy it, Alice has no choice but to show her a preview, and they walk over to the bathroom room door, and when he opens it there, it is a loud and torturous burning misery of hell. This scares her so much that she had to throw up in the trash can, and she finally realizes that she has to go spend an eternity in there, and it would have been nice to tell her that she'd get used to it. But that's never really the case to her. This might look harsh or unfair, but everyone in hell is there because they deserve it, or they made a deal with the devil like Jeong, but Jeong was not letting this happen, so she calls her lawyer. Lewis was fed up with this, so he takes her phone, and he's seen thousands of lawyers reading these contracts in thousands of languages, and it always goes the same way because there's really no loophole, as she's indefinitely sold her soul and she's going to hell forever. The room becomes bleak as Zhang and Ellis sit down on the beds and he tries to comfort her, telling her that she's had 50 great years and some people don't even have 50 great minutes. He seems sad with her, but he's not the one having to spend the rest of his life in hell too. Louis, it's kind of depressing to send all these people to an endless torment and damnation every day, as it's kind of a real bummer for him. Louis was kind of pissed that humans get all excited and literally sign up their lives for this, but when it's time to pay they regret it and dive into a life that's even worse. 10. Then the one they escaped, but Zhang didn't have any regrets and it took her a while to get used to it, but once she did, she couldn't be stopped. Being a sadistic evil person really suits her, and there was a turning point where things became clear to her and she was dating this man and playing with his emotions, and then she realized that she had a choice. She could be sympathetic or she could just let go and not care about anything, and she chose the second option and turn off her compassion. So she went out with the guy until she got bored and then tossed him away, but that was just the beginning, as she did some terrible things after that, and she thought of all people Louis would enjoy these stories with him being the devil and all, but it turns out that Ellis is not actually the devil and he just works for him, and when she tries to insinuate if he's a demon or not, he gets really upset because he's more of an executive assistant to the devil. Zhang thinks that that's a cool thing, and it was cool at first, but after a few thousand years, Louis is just plain tired of it all, and he thought he was cut out for this kind of life, but he has horrible nightmares every night and he couldn't handle this business anymore, and he isn't sure how much longer he can deal with it. Zhang then tells him to stop if he doesn't like doing it anymore and just say no to the devil, but if he does that, what Zhang will experience is a walk in the park compared to what the devil will do to Ellis if he tells him no. But Zhang was not giving up, as she thinks there's a way for the both of them to get out of their little predicament here, and she suggests taking over his job, and she could become the devil's assistant and he could just retire and do whatever it is that he wants to do, like water skiing or something. It's kind of a win-win for the both of them, and he won't be crucified for abandoning his job, and she won't have to spend the rest of eternity in the torment of hell. This kind of intrigues Louis, but he warns her that she would be directly involved in a large amount of endless suffering for thousands of human beings, and he's not sure she can deal with it. But Zhang isn't exactly an average human being, as she's basically been in training her whole life for this, and she goes on with their evil branding quite comfortably. He gets that she's a sociopath. Before something like this, she has to be a whole new level of evil that humans haven't reached before, because she can't take the job and then decide she can't handle it because it's going to bounce back on Louis's face pretty badly. Zhang is confident and wants to prove herself to him, so she calls out for her assistant Dustin, who was waiting outside the door, and he was just on the phone with the airport about her private jet, but she doesn't care about that now, and she introduces him to Louis, and things get a bit awkward, and she takes her purse and pours a drink for Dustin while she tells him about the new deal she just struck with Louis. Dustin is seemingly happy to help out in any way that he can, and she is glad, and she wants to give Dustin an opportunity to experience something millions of people have been arguing about for thousands of years, like a reward for being a good assistant for all those years. Dustin still has no idea what's going on, but he drinks the scotch and she directs him toward the bathroom door. She tells him when he opens that door he'll be absolutely stunned by what he sees on the other side, but before that she tells him that she's grateful for having him. In his patience, she guides him toward the door, and he opens it and is immediately greeted by the absolute terrible sight of hell. He's shocked at what he's seeing, but without missing a beat, Zhang pushes him inside and locks the door behind him. This seemed like an adequate addition, but Louis was still not convinced, so she offers him her car, her jets, and everything that she has. 10. Including her mansion, and she isn't just doing this to save her life now, she's genuinely excited to damn people to hell as a job, so Louis had to check with his supervisor first, and the supervisor was surprisingly cool with it, and he warns her about the politics of hell and to watch her back. But just as Louis was about to walk out, there's a knock on the door, and it's his next appointment that he forgot. But this is Zhang's first appointment, and she's very excited to get started, so she opens the door to let the woman in. She introduces herself, and Louis talks to Beth, and she's a musician and is here to make sure she's the greatest rock star on the planet. But when she doesn't 10. accept the drink Zhang offers, Zhang is puzzled with the concept of a non-drinking musician Beth is all about. The music Anne wants nothing to do with. The rest of the stuff associated with the lifestyle. Louis sits her down and asks her why she wants to do this if it's just about the music, but Jung interrupts him saying that Beth doesn't need to practice because why take the stairs when you can take the elevator? But this particular elevator doesn't go up, it also doesn't back down. Jung tells him to leave because they've already made the deal and it's time for her to make the deal with Beth. Beth tells him she's a very ambitious artist and with the music business the way it is, it's almost impossible to get noticed. Lays is still trying to convince her not to do it, but Jung stops him because she and Beth are on the same page and he's the only one trying to fight this, so he better just leave now. He hands over the contract, but before he leaves he wants 10 to hear a song. Beth asks him what song, and he tells her A Christmas Tree, and she starts singing beautifully and he looks at her with a peaceful look in his eye, and Beth sings on and Jung and Louis look at her knowing what waits for her at the end, and here we see the scene ending and the story is over.